The reception I received on my Who Makes Team USA Overwatch World Cup video has been amazing over the past few days, so I'm back today to continue this Overwatch World Cup series by now looking at one of the most requested and interesting nations requested from you guys down in the comment section on my last video, Team China, as I want to give you guys my opinion on the players being considered and who myself I would select for a 7-man BlizzCon squad, given that China is one of the 5 teams alongside Team USA to have a bye straight to BlizzCon. China, like the UK, were in my opinion the most surprising standouts of last year's event, with some spotlight displays from Guxue on main tank and the star performances of their DPS players Leave and Crystal, as they went on to reach the final before falling, as every team has so far, to South Korea to pick up the second place silver medal. Again, I'll start by mentioning the committee that was voted in by the Chinese Overwatch community, although here, as well as with some of the players' names, I will apologise in advance for poor pronunciation. For a second year in a row, all 3 positions have stayed the same, as Wang Xingrui, known more familiar as RUI, was voted in as head coach, having masterminded the Hunters' unorthodox but very well received non-meta strategies so far this season. Alongside him in the general manager role is Li Xiong, aka Tutu, and she is currently a special correspondent for the Guangzhou Charge, having also been involved in the Chinese commentary broadcast of Chinese contenders and the Overwatch League. Finally is Huang Sung-yu, also known as Shang Gui, was chosen as the community lead, who also commentates. Unsurprisingly, given the people involved, we can expect to see many familiar faces, given opportunities, either from being included last year or within Chengdu's current setup. But like a number of the other teams, what makes this video a little easier is that this committee has already drawn up and announced a shortlist, from which they are conducting scrims and tryouts with. So I'm going to make the assumption that it will be from this selection of players that the 7-man squad will be selected. The players on this list are Guxue, Armung, Leityoung, Elsa, Yveltal, Leave, Crystal, Eileen, Jinmu, Kyo, Gary, what an incredible name, Coldest, Farway, and finally Secret. The easiest place to start with is probably the tank position, where we have to choose between Guxue, Armung, Leityoung, and Elsa. The main tank position is unfortunately for many one of the easiest choices to make. With us having no idea what the meta is going to look like come the end of the year, this choice has to be made by picking the better main tank, particularly on the most commonly played heroes, Winston and Reinhardt. Clearly, by this determination, one would have to pick Guxue, as despite a few hiccups early on into his Overwatch League career, as he worked on gelling with his Korean teammates, he's flourished into without a doubt one of the best main tanks in the league right now, who consistently top performances on both Winston and Ryan have not only propelled the spark forward, but also gone up against some of the best in the game, like Bumper, to further validate his quality. Now this is where the choice is rather strange to me, as the thing about the Giga Chad, Armung, is that he clearly isn't on the same level when it comes to his Winston and Ryan play, but that's because he specialises in Wrecking Ball and Orisa. So in many ways it would be unfair to compare these two Chads, given they play entirely different styles of Overwatch to one another, and in the end, the decision on who is picked will more likely come down to what sorts of compositions China want to play. Therefore, this might be one of the only instances where we might see the substitute 7th man may actually end up being whoever doesn't make the initial lineup, as it would allow the team to be flexible and adapt to whichever composition meta is being run at the end of the year. As for our flex tank, it comes down to the tough decision between Elsa and Leityoung. The latter potentially gets a head start, given he was a member of this team last year, but again, this more comes down to preference at start, with Elsa primarily playing Diva for the Hunters so far this season, as Leityoung has been rotated in and out regularly, but for the most part at the Zarya position. It's for this reason that I personally lean towards Elsa, as I'd rather have the more secure Diva player to take into an unknown meta, especially as he's already shown up to now the crucial ability that is becoming essential of players at his position to effectively swap over to Sombra or other DPS options to give his side another layer of flexibility. Moving on to the DPS position, we now have the choice between Crystal, Eileen, Jinmu, and our first non-AOW player we've come across in Leave. I tried looking as much as I could for information about Leave since last year's World Cup, where he came out of retirement and absolutely popped off. He undoubtedly proved that he deserved to be there, but since I haven't been able to find any reference to him being involved in the competitive Overwatch scene, so it's really hard to gauge where his level is at. Although I might be wrong on this, and it's evident the coaching staff are still really confident in his abilities if he was picked in the shortlist against others like Yang Xiaolong or Dia. Just a quick reminder, but although he is 17 now, which is why he hasn't looked to getting into the Overwatch League yet, his birthday is in October, making him 18 and eligible by the time BlizzCon comes around. His teammate from last year, Crystal, didn't see meaningful game time till last stage, and is still swapped in and out of the Spark. But since he's been involved, his rig play has been very good, and the few occasions where he's been able to demonstrate his DPS abilities have clearly shown off his talent. Eileen and Jinmu, however, are far more easier to evaluate with a lot more stage time under their belts, and it's interesting to note that Eileen is looking to return to the side, having been picked for China in 2017, but missed out last year. Jinmu, being on Chengdu, has had far more opportunities than most to show off his DPS skills, and boy has he delivered, with devastating displays on Pharah and Hanzo, to the point at which I personally argue he's the best Pharah in the league right now. Eileen, like the others, has spent a lot of time on Brig, but aside from this, he has specialised in running Sombra for the charge, with him at times literally being the only person keeping the team competitive, especially with the occasional flex onto Doomfist. We clearly have 4 talented candidates here, making this a very hard choice for whoever gets selected. I think Jinmu has to be in there, having shown off to consistently high standard his DPS ability, which coach RUI will obviously be immediately aware of. Alongside him though, I think I'd go with Crystal over Eileen, as having already picked Elsa, I don't think I need another Sombra specialist, and would rather have at my control Crystal's potential hero pool, which I think sees him getting the nod. And whilst I don't have everything I'd want to form an opinion of Leaf, I think he's someone who'd come into the conversation with Armin for this final 7th spot. This leads us to our final role to fill out, which is support, from which we find the most interesting and surprising shortlist of options, with only one out-and-out main support in Evator, and then 5 choices of flex supports with Kyo and Gary from the Chengdu Hunters, and then contenders players, Coldest, Faraway and Secret. Consequently, I have absolutely no difficulty in selecting Evator to fill the main support position for Team China, on the back of a strong season so far, in which his Mercy play has been brilliant, whilst his Lucio has at worst been serviceable, but overall decent. But as to who will partner him, unlike the other 2 roles, there is no chance that China take a third player from this position group, so it will have to be one of these 5. The choice between Kyo and Gary is made easier by the fact that they are on the same team alongside Evator. Kyo has been the starter for most of this season, and while statistically he looks poor compared to the rest of the league, this has been more down to how he has to play his flex support position, rather than through faults of his own. Gary hasn't played much at all comparatively, but looked fine when he was subbed in, but simply due to him being evidently preferred alongside showing a wider hero pool right now, I'd stick with Kyo over Gary. But now comes the difficult issue of evaluating him against his competitors from contenders. I obviously can't go into too much detail about these players, as I simply haven't watched them enough, and I might have to look at how their teams have done, which I know isn't the fairest or most accurate way of doing things. Coldest and Secret were on teams that tied for 3rd in the first season of this year's Chinese contenders. Coldest team Bilibili Gaming lost to the eventual winners LGE Huya, and recently won the Land Story Cup against Secret's team LGD Gaming, so purely on that basis, I'd give the edge to Coldest. From what I've read, Faraway also only recently came back out of retirement, but used to be a prominent member of LGD back in 2018. On the whole, however, right now I'd have to stick with the partnership of Evator and Kyo, as they've already developed synergy together with one another, and I'm in no position to fairly judge what level the contenders players are, although they could definitely prove their worth and earn a spot for the trial period in the coming weeks. Therefore, taking all this into account, my definite starting 6 that I pick right now would be Gushui at main tank, Elsa at flex tank, Evator at main support, Kyo at flex support, and the DPS duo of Jinmu and Crystal. This therefore leaves me with the 7th man choice, which is between Armin and Leaf, which ultimately comes down to whether I'd want a specialist in case of a bunker or Hammond multiple DPS meta. And thinking about it, I just edged towards bringing Leaf to add even more flexibility at the DPS position, as I'd be confident from what I've seen that Gushui would be able to adapt to playing these tank heroes well to a high level if required of him, although I know this would disappoint many fans, and in particular Team Ireland, who have already publicly voiced their support for the Giga Chad in reply to the Team China's Overwatch World Cup Twitter post. And with that, we've reached the end of my Team China Overwatch World Cup video, and I'd like to thank you for watching. Let me know which team you'd like me to cover next in the comments below. Otherwise, if you enjoyed, please be sure to like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for this continuing competitive Overwatch coverage and content, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.